All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another Music Mondays where I discuss the lyrics to one of my favorite albums every week. So today's album, as you can see in my chair, is Phantom Center by Ferron. And we're going to talk about every song that's available on Google. What I mean by that is 2 songs from this album. The lyrics are not available online, so I won't be talking about those songs when we get to them. But also, this is a live stream, so I'll be interacting with chat, and chat will, let me know what they think of each song, what they mean, or whatever. But these are all just my interpretations of the lyrics, right? I'm going to read the lyrics and say what they make me think of, right? What do I think they mean? What do they make me think of? So this is not canon in any way. And also, I'm going to include chapters in this video. So if you want to skip to certain tracks, that'll help you guys out. But for now, this is a live experience. So we got a little bit of an intro for a couple minutes while people get in chat. And then we're going to dive right into it. But yeah, so Phantom Center is one of my favorite Ferron albums. Her first 3 records, in my opinion, are really good albums, really underrated. So hopefully with my channel, I can get her some more recognition. What's up, Carlos? What's up, Leanne? Carlos says, hey, Cole, how's it going? Leanne's having trouble with her browser again. So yeah, just for now, we're going to give it like a minute or 2 for people to come in and join chat and everything. And then we're going to dive right into this album. So there's 8 tracks out of the 10 that I'm able to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, because 2 of the songs, the lyrics are not available online, as far as I could tell. So I don't know what to do there other than not talk about them. But yeah, so again, I'm going to include chapters down below. If you want to skip straight to the first track and you don't want to hear me ramble on and stuff, that's fine. But yeah, make sure to vote in my poll, my community tab. I'm asking everybody, should Sundays be an album listening party for our Music Monday album, or should it be a brand new album? And so far, people want a brand new album, which is fine by me, frankly. I can put a poll up, actually, because I'm streaming on YouTube. However, for next week's Music Monday album, we're not going to vote on it. So this weekend is an exception because I want to cover an album that came out 2 years ago that I love and that I have here on vinyl. Let me show it to you. This is the debut album by Dry Cleaning. Now, I want to talk about this next week because I do want to have some newer albums on my Music Mondays streams, just so people have an easier time finding my channel. I'm definitely going to talk about people like Ferron, who aren't as well known in the future. I'll definitely do that. But for the next couple weeks, I want to do albums I like that more people would probably be searching for on the YouTube search bar, right? So that's just a temporary thing. And then after that, we'll vote on the next week's album. So I just wanted to let you guys know. What's up, Jorge? How you doing, man? Where are you from, Jorge? Jay from Mexico is in the house. What's up, man? All right, we got some people in chat, so I suppose we will get the show ready to go. So for later, we're going to talk about track 1 right now. So I got to bring up some video stuff. Got the lyrics going there. Move my camera. I have to remember to do all this. Okay, so track 1 is called Stand Up. And let me see, let me get my chat ready. Okay. So let's check out verse 1 on Stand Up. Oh wait, before I do that, my ritual. Sorry, my Coke Zero ritual. This is the greatest sound in the universe. I love it. Okay, track 1, Stand Up, verse 1. There's love in the corners and love down the straight highway. There's danger in the outskirts of town. Ooh. and in what you don't say. You're either sinking or thinking, the dark's your romance, or a special one's shining a light on a chance, that it's all very worthy to ache in the middle of the night. Oh my goodness. So it needs to be said, first of all, that Ferron is lesbian, and she was big in the gay lesbian scene in the 80s, right? So there's going to be a lot of gay lesbian themes in these lyrics, which is clearly what this verse is talking about, in my opinion. So I love how she says, there's danger in the outskirts of town. So that makes me think of, this being 1990 when the album came out, and how being gay back then was definitely not like totally fine the way it is now, right? I mean, it's not completely fine these days, but obviously it's way better than it was in the 80s, in 1990. So there's danger in the outskirts of town. So the outskirts being, someone being openly gay and falling in love with someone of the same sex, right? There's danger there because, there's people out there who want to mean you harm. And there's, maybe it might affect your job. Maybe it might affect your family life, your friends. It wasn't easy back then. However, I like the line, she says, a special one's shining a light on a chance that it's all very worthy to ache. Right? So she's kind of doubting her whole life story, in my opinion. She's clearly a lesbian, but she's kind of doubting whether it's worth it, because it sounds like, as I mentioned, she's having a lot of hard time being openly lesbian. And maybe part of her soul is like, maybe I should just try being straight and marry some man to avoid, all this hardship and trouble that I'm going through. Like, maybe I should just give up on it and just be like everybody else. Well, it's not the right way to put it. And just be like, your standard husband-wife thing. But she's thinking about this, and she is just like, she's in awe of the fact that this, despite being gay in 1990, being a bad thing for most people in a lot of places around the world, when you find somebody who's like your soulmate, it just makes all the troubles worth it, right? She says, a special one's shining a light on a chance that it's all very worthy to ache in the middle of the night. So in other words, all the pain and hardship she has to go through being an openly lesbian woman is worth it when she finds that one person who's like her soulmate. I think that's a really beautiful thought process. Right? Because, that's what love's all about. Love is all about finding someone who you want to spend your life with, and especially finding someone who you can go through the tough times and the good times with, because, romance is not all roses. In fact, pretty much all the worst emotions you can feel are from romance, right? If you're having a fight with somebody that you're in a relationship with, or if you have a bad breakup, pretty much like the worst feelings I've ever felt emotionally were due to a romantic relationship, because you care so much about that person, right? And when they no longer want anything to do with you, it's like the worst feeling in the world. At least it is to me. But you take a chance on that, right? That it's a risk reward situation, right? So you risk those bad moments, but the reward is so worth it, especially as Ferron is talking about here. It's the risk is even more intense as a lesbian in 1990 than it is currently. So I can't even imagine. Let's check out chat for a second. Leanne says, that's what I was thinking. Is it popular just because of the LGBTP plus listening audience. Jorge says, I'm from Mexico as well. Mid-time viewer, I'd say. Thanks to your videos, I was finally able to get into Garbage and Teenage Fan Club. That's awesome, man. I'm glad you liked them. You know, all I do is I share my favorite music, and hopefully you guys also like it. Or I talk about lyrics to my favorite albums, and hopefully they're somewhat interesting. But anyways, so back to this song. So basically this verse is talking about how Ferron is having doubts about being lesbian, and maybe she should just give up, right? Which is obviously, that's not something you give up. You can't just change your sexual orientation. But she's kind of seriously thinking about it because, you know, it sounds like she's had a lot of rough times. And from her experience, like, is it even worth it? Maybe it would be better for her to just fake being straight and marry some guy and have kids and give up on being true to herself, right? So she's having doubts about this whole situation, and I feel for her. It's a really rough situation. But then she reminds herself at the end of the verse, of course, that it's all worth it when you find that one person who just lights up your world, right? And isn't that such a beautiful statement? I think it is. But let's keep going here. Let's see where the story ends up. All right, verse 2. Sometimes I can't sleep. I can't keep all these feelings at bay. I am rage, I am sorrow, I am grief, all alone in my way. Oh my goodness. Let's just look at that. Yeah, so especially the last sentence, all alone in my way. Oh my goodness. Because you're having such intense feelings and emotions, right? Rage, sorrow, and grief, as she puts it. And yet, like, you can't talk to anybody about it, really. I mean, maybe, I guess maybe there was, like, gay clubs back then or something. Maybe she had gay friends or whatever. But, like, in general, at work or to random people, or if she has a church that she goes to, like, it sounds like most of the people in her life, she's not able to speak about her gay relationships with, right? Like, she feels like totally isolated in that kind of way where she's just totally alone emotionally. She can't vent to anybody because I guess the situation back then was not so great for gay people. I mean, I don't know the history of, you know, the gay lesbian movement struggles in 1990, but from the song, it sounds like from her experience, you know, she's having these secret relationships. She feels like she can't be herself. And when she has, let's say she goes through a bad breakup with her girlfriend, if she's basically saying she can't tell anybody about it. She can't vent to anybody because maybe she's trying to even secretly be lesbian. She doesn't want other people to know, right? Don't ask, don't tell, maybe. So, like, maybe she hasn't even told a lot of people that she's lesbian, and all of her relationships have been secretive. And so that whole part of her life is just, like, you know, out of bounds for everyone else in her life, her friends and family. So, man, that's a really intense situation. Let's keep going, though. The second part of this verse says, I know humor and heartbreak in people are life. If I keep my eyes closed, I'll be open to strife, because the powers that be send their love in the middle of the night. Let's think about that for a moment. I know humor and heartbreak in people are life. If I keep my eyes closed, I'll be open to strife, because the powers that be send their love in the middle of the night. This one's a little bit tougher. If I keep my eyes closed, I will be open to strife. What do you guys think that means? I mean, I guess I'm imagining what she's saying is she can't keep her eyes closed to what people think of her, like metaphorically, right? She has to constantly be aware of what people think of her, or else, in other words, she's secretly lesbian is apparently what's going on, and so she has to constantly be aware of not letting other people know that she is, because it sounds like you can't be openly lesbian wherever she was living at that time. I mean, I guess she's Canadian. So it sounds like she has to constantly be aware of what people know about her, in other words, right? She has to, obviously there's no social media back then, so there's no problem with like posting photos of her, like, you know, being close with her lover or whatever. But she's got to keep her image, her social image. She's got to make sure that her social image is that she's not lesbian. It's kind of what it sounds like, right? She has to not let certain people know. In other words, if the wrong people know that she's gay, then her life is going to fall apart. It's kind of what this makes me think of. I don't know if it's exactly what she's talking about, but it sounds like this is one of the struggles of being gay back then, is you have to be aware of other people. You have to be aware that certain people, if they know that you're gay, are going to treat you poorly, however that would be. But then on the other hand, she's saying, you know, she says, I know humor and heartbreak in people are life. So like on the other hand, she wants to be close to other people. She wants to be herself. She wants to be able to tell anybody that she's in a gay relationship and not have it be a problem. But the problem is she can't do that, right? She wants to be able to tell people in her life about what's going on with her and her girlfriend and their plans together and their hopes and dreams or whatever. She wants to be able to do that, but at the same time, she has to be constantly aware of who she's telling these things to. Like, is the person she's talking to not going to understand, or worse, you know, do something bad because they find out she's gay? I mean, it sounds like a really bleak time period, right? From these lyrics. Do you guys agree with that? It sounds like she is really struggling with being herself back in 1990 Canada. I mean, geez Louise. I didn't realize it was that bad. But, oh my goodness. Let's check out chat for a second. Leanne says, I am alone in my way, meaning her thoughts are creating dissonance and sleepless in denial and repression. Like when she says I'm alone in my way, it just sounds like, you know, she has very little social connection to other people because she can't be herself. And if you can't be yourself, then that's a really lonely feeling, right? Because when you can be yourself, you can find other people who are just like you. But if you're pretending that you're someone else, then you're constantly putting on a show, a fake show, and then you can never actually be close to anybody because you're being fake. Right? Leanne says, Cole, it is not back then, it's today's problems. Well, I mean, that's true. There's still issues in the gay community, right? It's not all roses today either, but it sounds like back then it was like way worse. Obviously, like certain countries are way worse in general in any time period. Like, I don't know, let's say the Middle East, but we're talking about Canada, which I would normally think of as like the worst situation. But then again, I don't know about how gay rights was going in Canada in 1990, or like how they treat how a random person would treat a lesbian in Canada in 1990. Like, it sounds like it was a big deal for Ferron. Leanne says, I gotta love Christian men that go to church and say it's oh so wrong. Then they go home to watch porn, actresses pretending to be lesbian. I know, right? I'm guilty of that, right? There's so many Christian men that are like, oh, being gay is morally wrong. It's against our religion or whatever. And then, like Leanne says, they go watch lesbian porn, right? I mean, what a joke. Jay from Mexico says, it's all about tolerance. Yeah, I mean, so the takeaway point is she can't just be herself, right? She has to constantly be aware of her actions and what other people think about her. She can't just be herself, which is just like such a crappy feeling. It's probably one of the most crappy feelings there is you have to pretend all day, right? As soon as you are yourself in front of the wrong person, then, who knows what bad thing could happen to you. Maybe nothing would happen to you, but she doesn't know. There's crazy people out there. There's crazy people who have killed homosexuals just because they're homosexuals, even in America. So these things happen. She can't be oblivious to all that kind of stuff. Leanne says, Cole, our pride parade was canceled because of the infighting and threats. Yeah, so it's still a problem today. We've gotten better, but it's still a problem today. So that's fair. All right, let's keep going. This is a long song. Oh my goodness. Okay, verse 3. I'm going to stand up and let myself be counted for. Ooh. I've got my one life, and what's it to amount to if I don't learn how to love you and love myself beside you? Oh my God. That's so beautiful. She has made a decision here, right? So far in this song, she doesn't know whether to be herself or not. She's afraid. She's scared. And right now in verse 3, she's like, you know what? I'm going to stand up. I am going to let the world know what I am, and what I am is a lesbian. She's got her one life to live, as she puts it. And what's the point in living her whole life doing things she doesn't want to do or not being the person she is, right? And she's gonna love a girlfriend. She's gonna meet a girl that she falls in love with, and she's gonna openly love them. And she's like, you know what? I don't care how terrible it is. I don't care how dangerous it might be to be openly gay in an openly gay relationship. I'm gonna do it because I've got one life to live here, and I'm not gonna torture myself just because there are people out there who are intolerant. So this is a very empowering moment we've got here. This is great. I mean, geez Louise, like, I can't relate to her because, I'm a straight, white, cis male. So I have none of these issues to think about in my daily life. I can just be myself. I mean, my struggle is trying to be myself, and people don't really understand me, right? Like, I tell them about my website and my YouTube channel and stuff, and nobody understands why I would spend all this time researching music and making this channel. They're like, why don't you just get a real job? Right? I don't have any, my struggles are nowhere near Ferron's, right? So I am in awe of her at this moment. in her life and in the song. She is ready to die on this hill, is the phrase, right? You got to pick the hill that you're willing to die on. And she's willing to die on this hill. She's like, you know what? I can't stand living my entire life not being myself and doing things I don't want to do. So screw it. I love that. That's very empowering. It's very inspirational. And then there's a couple more parts of this verse. She says, to love you and love myself beside you, mix the gentle and proud. I want to love life. The vision in the window told me, stand up. The vision in the window. Could that be like, it kind of makes me think of, she had like a really inspirational dream one night where she was finally herself and she had this epiphany where the only way she's going to love life is to just take the big plunge, to risk it and just be openly gay and be in an openly gay relationship. Right? Everyone has those kind of epiphanies every now and then, right? You're sleeping, you're having some weird dream, and then for some reason in your dream, some amazing thought comes to you and you wake up and you're like, oh my God, everything is clear now. That certainly happened to me every now and then, right? It's so funny how life works, where every now and then your life gets changed by like an encounter or a moment in a dream, or maybe you read something and suddenly your entire life perspective is changed forever. So, she says the vision in the window told me to stand up. So I guess maybe the vision could also be she saw her girlfriend leaving through the window. Like maybe they were hanging out, watching TV or something, and then her girlfriend left. And she was looking at her girlfriend through the window, and she looked like a vision of her future. And from then on, she knew what to do with her life. Just reading chat for a second. All right, let's keep going. This is a long song. There's a lot of verses on this one. All right, she says, to my mother, my father, my witnesses, live in my jagged heart that for years has been running like fire, as though that was its part. From lover to cover, and ocean and sky, from desert to mountain, and promise to lie, I can say that I've prayed to forgiveness in the middle of the night. So this last line is hitting me really hard. She's praying for forgiveness. So that makes me think of two things. There's two types of forgiveness here. One is, she could be asking for forgiveness from God, from being gay, when apparently most religions are against it. That's a possible thought. She could be praying for forgiveness, like as a self-forgiveness. Like she's forgiving herself for spending so many years not being herself. Right? Maybe she's learning to forgive herself for wasting so much of her life pretending to be straight, let's say. Right? Because she's probably like thinking like, man, I don't know how old she was in 1990. Let's say 35. So maybe she's thinking like, man, I spent 35 years of my life hiding my true self, pretending that I was straight, telling everybody lies, essentially. And she's thinking of all these things in retrospect, and she's like, man, I'm such a coward for not just being myself from day one, despite all the risks. And so maybe now she's forgiving herself for it taking 35 years, let's say, to finally be openly gay. Right? Because it sounds like that was a really hard thing to come to terms with, is essentially she's thinking of all this wasted time where it's possible that, you know, she spent, let's say, most of her 20s, for example, not searching for a girlfriend because she was, you know, in conflict with herself, with her true self. She's like, maybe she was pretending in her 20s to be straight just so that she wouldn't have to deal with all the harassment, right? And she's 35 now, and she's remembering her 20s and how cowardly she was in her eyes for not just being herself from day one, and she's forgiving herself. So that's another way to think about it. Let's check out chat. What's up, Sean? Now spinning TV. Leanne says, "Make love, not war." Yeah. So let's start this verse over again for a second. Let's see if I can think of any other interpretations here. She says, "To my mother, my father, my witnesses live in my jagged heart, that for years have been running like fire, as though that was its part. From lover to cover, in ocean to sky, from desert to mountain, and promise to lie." So, from desert to mountain. Well, a desert, I mean, I imagine a desert is, there's nothing going on in a desert. It's just sand. There's nothing living in a desert, essentially. Whereas a mountain, you know, you can see everything. There's a beautiful horizon. It's probably life up there. Life looks beautiful from a mountaintop, but in the desert, right, you're just like constantly on the verge of death, unless you find an oasis or something. So, she's just going through a roller coaster of emotions in her life where, I mean, like, I can't even imagine being in a situation where you can't just tell anybody you meet what's going on with you, right? Like, let's say you're having a terrible day at work, or you're having a terrible day because of your lesbian girlfriend. And so at work, like, you're acting really strangely, or maybe you're agitated and people notice that and they're like, why is Ferron so grumpy today or whatever? You can't just tell them what's going on. You got to, like, just let them wonder why you're grumpy, right? You can't just let these feelings out. So she's basically decided that for her own mental health, despite all the risks, she's just going to be herself, right? She's got one life to live, and she could die at any moment. We all could, right? She could die at 40. I could die at 40. You know, you never know. So would you rather die at 40 living a life you never wanted to live, or die at 40 having done the things you want to do? And obviously, let's be honest, she lives in Canada, so it's not like I don't remember which countries in the Middle East exactly, but obviously there are countries in the Middle East, as an example, where being gay is like a death sentence, like legally. So, you know, at least she has the option in Canada to be gay. It would just be harder for her. What's up, Groovy Lisa? Ian's talking about First Nations people She says, First Nations people praying to the Christian God that sought to wipe them all off the face of the earth. That's a random thought, Leanne. However, that's an interesting thought, Leanne, because I always found it really strange. In America here, we had slavery, obviously. We had slaves from Africa. And we introduced Christianity to Africa, essentially, right? All the European countries did. And so now in America, you have all these African Americans who are Christians. And to me, I always thought that was a little strange, right? Because you're essentially taking on the religion of your captors, your slave masters. So, I don't know. That's just a random thought I've had before. But, who am I to say anything about that? Anyways, let's keep moving on. This is the same thing. Okay, never mind. Okay, this is a new verse. Now I can see love in the woman, and love in the man in myself. I see how most people just ache to be good at expressing themselves. And I wish I could tell you just right what I mean about the light shining down, if I'd only come clean. But for now, I live with myself in the middle of the night. Wait a minute. But for now, I live with myself in the middle of the night? Okay, so this is interesting to me, because what this makes me think of is earlier she had this epiphany, right? She was looking at her girlfriend through the window. She had this amazing epiphany in this moment of courage to finally just be herself. She's like, you know what? Screw it all. I'm just going to be myself. I don't care how dangerous it might be. I don't care if some random person decides to murder me. I'd rather be myself. I have one life to live. And, if bad things happen to me, so be it. So she had this moment of courage, seeing her girlfriend leave through the window in the previous verse. But now she's had some time, right? Maybe her girlfriend left at 5 or 6 p.m. and now it's midnight and she's sleeping in bed and she's up in bed reading or whatever. But now that courage has kind of gone away is what it sounds like. It sounds like that courage is no longer taking hold of her. And now she's doubting herself again. Right? She says, but for now I live with myself in the middle of the night. So to me, I interpret that as, like I was saying, her courage is no longer there. She felt so inspired early on in the day, watching her girlfriend leave through the window. But now she's doubting herself again. She's like, yeah, but do I want to risk it? I want to be able to express myself. And, I'm sure that most people just want to be good. Most people have good intentions and good hearts, but is it worth it? Because there's crazy people out there and, people get murdered for being gay. And to me, this verse sounds like a moment of doubt where her epiphany is no longer an epiphany anymore. Now it's just she's back to her old self. And she's probably going to wake up in the morning and just do the same old, pretend she's not gay thing that she's been doing for 35 years. That's kind of what this makes me think of. So poor Ferron, she thought she had the strength to be herself and that the strength would now last for the rest of her life. But it's already 6 hours later, it's midnight, she's in bed and she's thinking about all this and she's doubting herself. And she's like, well, I don't know if I should do that actually, because the risks are possibly really intense. And, maybe it wouldn't be such a great idea. That's what this makes me think of. So poor Ferron, she was almost there, but now she's doubting herself again. And so it sounds like this song to me is this song is all about her back and forth that she goes through mentally of giving in to being fully gay and open about it versus only being openly gay to certain specific people who she knows for sure don't have a problem with it, right? She's constantly going back and forth with these thoughts and feelings about it of like, should I just be out in the open or should I go back in the closet? And every now and then she has these moments of courage where she's like, I'm just going to be out of the closet. Like, screw it. This is my one life. I'm just going to do it, you know? But now it's the end of the song and she's back in the closet. So that's pretty sad. Poor Ferron. All right. Well, that was track 1. That was Stand Up. Let's move on to track number 2, which is called The Cart. And let me make sure everyone can see it on my screen. There we go. Okay, verse 1 of The Cart. She says, the strap that holds the cart in rain has been let loose by wearing thin. By wearing thin, by biting through, the shift in power leans to you, and the cart is on a wheel. Ooh. So this is like our previous song, where basically the longer she lives her life, the more she realizes that being in the closet is just like, it's so hard to do. And it's just like, it's just killing her, right? I mean, she's been in the closet for, let's say, 30 years, and it was easier at first. But in her later years, she's in her 30s now. Let's say she's 35, like I was saying before. You know, like as time goes on, and she's in her 30s or maybe 40s now, like she sees her whole life going by, right? The older she gets, the more she realizes, I'm going to die at 80 years old, having not been myself my entire life, right? And that thought is just absolutely eating away at her. It's loosening the strap, metaphorically, that's holding the cart in rain. The cart being her, basically the metaphor is, whether she's been spending her whole life remaining in the closet, right? That's the metaphor is, she's been in the closet her whole life, but the older she gets, the more she realizes how much she's wasting her life by being in the closet, because living your life, not being able to be, if you live your life without being who you really are you really living your life? And so the older she gets, the more she thinks about that, and the more she is willing to just come out and be gay and come out of the closet. Leanne says, Cole, move the Ferron album to the wooden chair stack because you're hiding it. Well, I can't show it now because I have to show the lyrics on the screen. So you saw it earlier, but I can't do anything about that at the moment. So yeah, so I like this verse a lot because it speaks about it's about how life experience changes your thoughts and perceptions, right? The older you get, this is true for me, the older I get, the more I think about what matters to me in life, right? So for example, I'm at the age of, I'm almost 37. We're like, now I got to start thinking about, do I want to have kids? I got to meet some girl and marry her and then have kids and then get a house and then do all that kind of stuff, right? So like my priorities are different. And as Ferron gets older, her priorities are different. It wasn't so bad being secretly gay, and maybe they're like gay bars where she lives. And, it wasn't so bad being secretly gay when she was 20, let's say, because, she had her whole life ahead of her. And she didn't really need to think that deeply about it per se. But now she's 35, 40 years old. Now she's thinking about how depressing it would be to have lived her entire life not being herself, despite the risks, right? I mean, that to me is such a true universal statement. Like we all, as we get older, we all start to think about what really matters to us. You know, whether it's like raising a family or at the moment, for me, what I think about is, you know, like what I'm doing with my channel is like, you know, is this something I really want to do? Do I really want to spend my time trying to get a family going and get a job? Or do I want to do my passion, which is finding music and sharing it and talking about it with people, right? I mean, my priorities are different. So I can appreciate where she's going here. I mean, obviously it's a very different scenario for her, but the general idea I can get behind. What's up, Greg? How you doing, man? Where are you from, Greg? Nice to see you. So anyways, let's go to verse 2 here. Leanne says, most people want kids. I mean, you know, I want kids, but at the same time, like, the problem I have at 37 in a couple months I'm going to be is that having a family means I can't obviously do all of these daily streams, for instance, right? I mean, I'm able to do these streams currently because I'm living off life savings and investments, and I don't really go out anyway. So I figure, well, if I'm just going to stay at home anyway, I might as well like stream fun content. Greg says, I'm from Kentucky. Very cool, man. I haven't been there yet, but maybe one day I'll go. But anyway, so verse 2, she says, I've wept with joy for the things I've done, and I've wept as hard for what I've left undone. Ooh. For what I left undone, for what I couldn't deem mine, for what I thought was yours, and so I drew the line. Ooh. Let's think about this. Yeah, I mean, so far this album is, you know, it's kind of the same situation as track 1, where she's constantly going back and forth about what she should do. She should be openly gay or not. But she's also talking about how her courage comes and goes, right? Some days she is really brave and is true to herself, and she's wept with joy for the things she's done, as she puts it, right? She's so happy with herself for having the courage to be herself on some days, but then on other days she doesn't have the courage, and she weeps for all of those days where she basically was hiding from the world. So, oh my goodness, this poor lady. This poor lady, you guys, she's just going through some mental hurdles like nobody's business. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Verse 3. I heard someone fall. I saw another one flail. I saw an arm dig deep where there was no rail. Well, there is no rail, and there's no because. Though the body be strong, the spirit is law. Oh my goodness. The spirit is law. I mean, that makes me think about, she's thinking about religion. You know, again, this may not be canon, but this is making me think of religion, and maybe she was brought up religious in a religious family, and I'm assuming, you know, you're not allowed to be gay in the religion, whatever it was. So now she's thinking about the super ramifications of what she's been doing, of being gay, which is obviously she could possibly be going to hell for doing this, right? So even though she may have the courage to be gay openly some days of the week versus others, she says the spirit is law, and the law is being gay is not allowed, or you're going to go to hell forever, right? So now that's like a whole nother dimension to this problem she has of like, you know, as she puts it, though the body be strong, the spirit is law. So although sometimes she has the courage to be herself, she's reminded constantly that, you know, the ultimate bad news for her is to die and find out she's going to hell forever for being gay. Like that is the ultimate depressing thought, right? I mean, geez Louise, it's one thing to, you know, like, what do I want to say? It's one thing to deal with the real world consequences of being openly gay back then, but it's another thing to also seriously consider religiously that by being who I am and doing all these things, dating these women or whatever, that she may end up in hell forever. Like, that's intense. That's a really intense thought. And, you know, at the beginning of this verse, it sounds like she's thinking about, she says, I heard someone fall. I saw another one flail. I saw an arm dig deep where there was no rail. I mean, that kind of makes me think of, she's maybe heard on the news of like murders, because this happens, right? Where some crazy religious person kills a gay couple for being gay, right? So she's probably heard all these horror stories. So she's constantly reminded that these psychos exist, and like there's like basically no winning for her, right? Because even if she's able to avoid these psychopaths and not be murdered for being openly gay, now she's got to worry about, yeah, but is God going to judge me and damn me forever? I mean, geez Louise. Let's reading chat for a second. Leanne says, Cole, you need a soundproof studio to run your podcasts and radio shows, and the kids can wait an hour or two. I mean, you know, I would make it work, but I'm just saying. She says, the kids can't have access to you all day and night. I mean, I would find a way to make it work. I know. I'm just saying. Greg says, well, I can understand what she's saying because I'm gay myself. Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, like I happen to be straight, so I can't identify at all with my life experience with any of these songs. So I can only imagine to the best of my abilities what it must be like. So yeah, this verse really hit me deep because, like I was saying, it's one thing to worry about other human beings treating you poorly. You know, that's an understatement, treating you poorly. Possibly murdering you for being gay. But it's a whole nother situation to then wonder as a, let's say a Christian, let's say Ferron's a Christian. It's a whole nother story to now worry about the afterlife ramifications of being yourself. So geez Louise. Let's keep going here. She says, the cart is on a wheel and the wheel is on a hill and the hill is shifting sand, and inside these laws we stand. I mean, that just makes me think of like there's no winning here, right? Like no matter how much she struggles, there's no winning here. There's no solution that works for anybody. Right? And she's probably thinking of how absurd it is as let's assume she's a Christian, right? Or I don't remember which type of Christian believes in hell for being gay. right? So whatever one that was, she's probably thinking to herself, like, how ridiculous is it that I'm born and we're all born in the image of God or whatever. And why would God make me gay if he also doesn't want me to be gay? Right? Like, why do I have to suffer through this when there are people who don't have to suffer through that, right? Like, for me, personally, I'm not gay, so I don't have to struggle with this situation here, both religiously or, socially. So she's probably thinking to herself, like, it's just so crazy to me that if we're made in the image of God and God hates gay people, then why am I gay? Like, you know what I mean? Like, just, I can't even, I feel for her, man. Greg says, yeah, I got into a lot of fights at school because of it. I can only imagine, man. I'm so sorry you had to deal with all that. You and Ferron, both. Let's keep moving here. So she says, if we are lives and souls to keep, if we are love, I hope we do not sleep. I hope we stay our ground, hold fast to the mother as she turns us round. Ooh, this one's very poetic. Let's think about this for a second. If we are lives and souls to keep, if we are love, I hope we do not sleep. Excuse me. If we are love, I hope we do not sleep. Okay. What this makes me think of is she's thinking about it a little bit deeper, right? She believes in God, let's say, and God is all about love. God loves everyone. Well, if loving another human being, whether they are of the same sex or not, is if she loves another woman, that's love, and God, loves his creation, all of humanity. So if I'm celebrating love by loving another woman as a woman, then she's kind of having this epiphany, this mini epiphany right now of like, well, then she calls God the mother, I guess. So I guess she's some kind of spiritual type. I don't know. So anyway, so she's thinking about this and she's like, well, if God is all loving, God loves his creation, and I'm loving another person, then God must understand, because we're both coming from a place of love here. And if we're both coming from a place of love, then what's the problem, right? They should understand, right? If God loves us and I love someone, then what she's basically realizing is then there shouldn't be an issue here, right? She's kind of justifying it, right? On one hand, she's worried about going to hell forever because God hates gay people. But on the other hand, she's like, yeah, but wait a minute. If God is all about love and I'm loving someone else, then that should be like an exception, basically, right? It's kind of how I think about it. What do you guys think? Let's check out chat for a second. Leanne says, it's different for two girls. No one really cares until you want to legalize unions and marriage and equal rights, and then it's a problem. Leanne says, I openly kissed, held hands, whatever with my girlfriend. No one batted an eye. She said, I remember one person said, my girlfriend and I were together and we were just sitting on a bus bench. Shrug. Leanne's talking about my new tagline for my channel. We made this up last night. So my new tagline for the music hole is, We make discovering new music daily fun and easy. So what do you guys think about that? So in other words, what she's saying in this verse is she's justifying what she's doing, because the way she's thinking about it is, if what I'm doing is based on love, and God's all about love, then God should understand, and then I'm fine. So she's getting courageous about it again, because she's realizing, oh, this all makes sense actually, and God will forgive me because he loves me. I love this woman, and like what's the problem here? That's kind of how it makes me think. She's going back and forth about all these things. But anyways, sorry, I'm just reading chat for a second. What's up, Fabio? How you doing, man? Let me know what you guys thought of the album, by the way. I know what some of you thought, but like Greg or whoever else hasn't told me yet. I'm very curious to know. Unless you didn't listen to it, in which case I'm surprised you're watching this. But yeah, let's move on to track 3. Oops. Let me just get the visuals going. All right. Track 3 is Harmless Love, which is pretty epic. It's a pretty epic song. It's kind of a long song. All right. Let me get my Coke first. All right, track 3, Harmless Love. So verse 1, what's the matter with Harmless? Take a new step in an old direction. Ooh, so the old direction, right, is a man marries a woman. Taking a new step is a woman marries a woman, right? And she says, if you think about tenderness, what's the matter with harmless love? Yeah, so this is her natural conclusion from the last song of she's thinking about it. She's like, well, God is all about love. I'm all about love. It's very harmless. So what's the big deal here? Right? And I mean, this is, to me personally, this is the most ridiculous part about, the super religious people who hate gay people and occasionally murder them. Right? It's like, how are they impacting your life? They're not doing anything to you. They probably don't even live in the same state as you, even sometimes, or the same town or whatever. Or they're not even in your social group. So why do you even care? There's only one answer to that question, which I guess makes sense in a really twisted way, right? So the question is, why should some random person who believes in a religion that hates homosexuality, why should that person care about a stranger who's harmlessly in love with someone? Why should the religious person care about what some stranger is doing that isn't impacting their life? Why would they care? The only reason I can think of, and I'm not justifying it, I'm just saying the only reason I can think of is maybe they feel like they're under pressure from God. They're under judgment from God, where if they don't do something about this gay situation in the world, then God is going to look at them like, oh, you didn't do anything about it? You're going to hell, right? That's so twisted, but like, I can't think of any other reason. It's not justifying it. I'm just like, I'm trying to understand these psychopaths who murder innocent gay and lesbian people. But anyways, that's a tangent. So she's just thinking about all this. She's like, what I'm doing is totally harmless. It's in the name of love, right? I mean, I could be doing something much worse. I could be a criminal. I could be hurting other people. And I could be doing much worse things. But the only things that people care about me doing are just loving another woman. Like, it's just totally ridiculous to her, and I agree. Right? She's not hurting anybody. So why do so many people care so strongly? I agree with that. All right, verse 2. Let me check out chat for a second, actually. Do, 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 do. Okay, verse 2. I take a little walk outside in a town that brings me pears and peaches. I'm busting with love inside, and it's always more than it ever teaches. On the curb, I pass a friend of mine. We seem a little older, maybe a little wiser. We laugh about the shades of time and marvel at love, the great skywriter. Ooh. So, I appreciate this. Like I said, I'm getting older. I'm turning 37 soon. And I'm starting to think about, like, what in my life do I really care about the most? Right? So, for example, in my own life, I have trouble making friends. You know, I'll go to my local hookah shop and try to make friends with random people there, and a lot of them aren't interested. And I worry about that. I try to wonder to myself, why don't they want to be friends with me? You know, is it because of something I'm doing or something I'm not doing, and that's why they don't want to be my friend? But then the more I think about it, I think about who they are, and I kind of realize, I realize two things. One is, not everybody has to be your friend, right? And the second thing is, do I even want to be their friend? Like, best friend? You know, do I want to be more than just a hookah buddy? Do I want to be someone do I want to be their friend and someone who I talk to all the time and hang out with all the time outside of hookah? Like, are we even on the same wavelength here? Right? Does that make any sense? Like, I'm starting to appreciate the few friends I have who I'm on the same wavelength with, who talk to me all the time, who I can tell anything to, right? You know, you're not meant to be friends with everybody, but you got to cherish the people that are your good friends or who are close to you in your life, friends or family. And you got to remind them too how much they mean to you. And it sounds like Ferron is kind of thinking vaguely similar thoughts as she's getting older. She's got more perspective on life and what the point of her life is and how she wants to live her life. And she's just thinking about, like, what does she care about the most at her current age of, I don't know, let's say 40. She's 40 years old, maybe. You know, what does she actually care about? And it sounds like what she cares about is just loving someone else authentically, loving her girlfriend. And that's the most important thing. And if you know what, if something terrible happens to her because of this, then it is what it is. Jay from Mexico says, Harmless Love is my favorite lyrics. I know, it's such a great song. Leanne says, Cole, this is not an album. It's a, what's the word? Evolution? Leanne says, Cole, it would be smashing if we were in the same city. Go out sometimes. I'd help you hunt for LPs because I don't buy LPs anymore. I know, we all live all over the world. Jay from Mexico says he's on the same page as me lyrically. Leanne says, that was the first impression I had of you. Why can't this dude live across town? I know, all of us live in completely different countries and states and stuff. What a shame. But yeah, I like this verse a lot because I'm thinking these same thoughts in my own way of, like, as I get older, you know, what do I care about the most? So for example, I mentioned I don't really go out socially ever. Now and then I go to my hookah cafe to hang out, but, like, not really. So what I usually do is I stay at home and I research music. And of course, now I stream every day of the week. So what I've decided in my own life is, well, what do I care about? I care about finding new favorite music and sharing it. That's what I care about. And if I die tomorrow, then I have been doing what I care about. And I can live with myself, right? So I like that. I like that, the train of thought. Let me get some Coke. All right, this looks like a repeat verse. Okay, she says, what's the matter with Harmless? Take a new step in an old direction. If you think about tenderness, what's the matter with a little hand-on-hand affection? Do you dream about a new day? You gotta dream about something strong and simple. Each and every is a kind thing to say. What's the matter with harmless love? Oh man, this is a very positive song. She was struggling on track 1, but she's justifying what's going on here in her own mind, right? I mean, there's no reason to justify it, but she has to have the courage to do these things because it's a struggle. So she's thinking about it. She's like, you know what? What's the matter if I hold hands with a girl? Who cares? Right? It's not hurting anybody. It's all in the name of love, right? Wouldn't you want someone else to also live their life the way they want to, as long as they're not causing anybody harm? Right? Wouldn't you want other people to not have to constantly be in emotional pain and mental pain because they can't be themselves, right? She says, you got to dream about a new day. And, oh man. So clearly, we're still struggling in 2023, but it's gotten better for certain countries at least. But I like this song a lot. It's motivating. It's making me think about my own life and how I'm at the age, like I said, where I want to do, if I can, I want to do what I really want to do. I don't want to worry about stuff that I realize I don't actually care about. Like, for instance, I've struggled in my life with what other people think of me, right? Other people might be thinking, well, why doesn't Cole go out to bars and hang out with other guys and go to football parties and, do whatever other social thing you can think of. Why does Cole stay at home and research music and work on his website and his YouTube channel, right? I used to worry about maybe nobody's thinking those things, but I would assume people are thinking those things, and it would really mess me up mentally. And I would say last year, I kind of just had an epiphany, a life epiphany of, you know what? If I can do what I want to do, I'm just going to do it so that if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm totally okay with it. That's how I think about it. But anyways, let's keep going here. She says, you play it cool and then you play it cool and then you love someone. You try to fight it, but kind love knows. You tell yourself you're in it just for fun. But ain't it funny how good love shows you how to tell a joke in troubled times? Pass the sugar on a cold, dark night. Spend a nickel just to save that dime toward a winter that will bite just right. Oh man, this is a beautiful verse. But the part that really stood out to me is when she says, you tell yourself you're in it just for fun. Because, oh man, I don't know if she's talking about a one-night stand situation, but what was I trying to say here? Sorry. It's interesting who you end up falling in love with. Sometimes, and we're all kind of guilty of this, where we tend to look at looks first, right? I mean, being sexually interested in someone is obviously very important, but especially in today's day and age with social media and Instagram and everyone trying to look their best on social media, we tend to go for looks first instead of who the person actually is. And it's always interesting how, you meet, let's say I'm a guy and I'm straight and I'm meeting a girl somewhere at a party. Maybe at first you didn't think so much of her in terms of like, oh, I would totally date her. But, you start talking to her, you're having a good time, you're telling jokes, you find out you both have things in common. And what was once originally not a thing, like you didn't have any intention of like starting a relationship here. You're just talking to her. Now you're getting to know her. You're getting to know each other. And now you're both kind of falling in love with each other. And I just love that idea, how sometimes these things are not just so obvious, right? It's not like you're at a party and there's some girl who's like super hot and that's all you care about. And so you go up to her and you start talking to her and she's really boring and uninteresting and kind of lame, but you're so fixated on her looks that you ignore everything else, right? Which is something that is a younger person's problem mostly, myself included. I would argue that kind of situation is like what happens to you when you're like 20-ish years old, right? When you're at a point in your life where all you really care about is like sleeping with people, right? That's how I was when I was in my early 20s. Was like I was way more mentally focused on sleeping with cute girls than with like thinking about like, oh, would I see myself living with this person for the rest of my life? Like, do we have anything in common? So as I get older, my priorities are different. My priorities now are like, when I go on a date, I ask myself, like, could I see myself living with this person and like, spending a Sunday night in with them watching some stupid show, right? Let's reading chat for a second. Leanne says, hard to say, hey, baby, you're so hot when my entire mouth is ripped off. LOL. Oh, my goodness. Well, I mean, like, what this verse makes me think of is as I get older, I really appreciate getting to know someone way more than, like how hot they are at first glance, right? In fact, at least for me, someone becomes a lot hotter, quote unquote, when I realize we both have like a lot in common and they're kind of funny and they're intelligent and stuff like that. So like, maybe they're not a supermodel looking type person, but you fall in love with them. I think that's beautiful. Let's keep going though. I think this is another repeat. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Another verse. Light a candle for softness. Light a candle for friends till they come through. Light a candle for warm, kind love. Light a candle for me and you. Because there's a reason we've come here. Are we holding back or are we willing for a connection? While knowing what we hold most dear must eventually surrender to its own direction. Ooh. So, what this makes me think of, and it's very beautiful, is, obviously she's struggling with being gay. She's even worried occasionally, religiously, about the afterlife ramifications of being gay. Like, is she going to hell forever? But the reality is, in her life, in her mind, in her world, when she's talking to certain women, she falls in love with them. And it's just a natural feeling, right? It's natural. And something so natural, how could it possibly be bad? Right? I mean, speaking for myself as a straight man, I've never fallen in love with a man, like ever. So, I have male friends, but I'm not in love with them, right? I fall in love with women as a straight man. So here she is as a woman who's legitimately falling in love with these random women she meets throughout her life. And it's a real natural feeling. So how can something so natural be unnatural or wrong rather? Right? Like it's in conflict with a lot of things she's been taught in her life, mostly religiously, of like, well, if God made me and I naturally am finding myself falling in love with women and not men, then how can that possibly be a bad thing? That's kind of what it makes me think of. She got chat. Leanne says in chat, why is things in common so important? You fall in love, you share your passions, you grow. Well, okay, maybe we don't have to have everything in common, but what I mean is like, there's what I'm trying to say is like, I'm at a point in my life where I'm way more interested in getting to know if I have chemistry with a woman than with how beautiful I think they look. Right? I mean, there has to be a level of sexual interest, but I'm way more interested as I get older in, do we have any like intellectual chemistry or not? So if you're some 10 out of 10 supermodel woman, but we have no chemistry, then there's no chance. You've got no chance with me. So that's how I think of things. All right. Well, that's the song, apparently. That's the whole thing. All right. One of my favorite songs, track 3. So good. Let's keep going here. Track 4 is Indian Dreams. How long is this? Okay. All right, Indian Dreams, verse 1. Young hearts, stay true, stay smart, see through. The stories that they say, the reasons that they play are not for you. It's big toys for big wars, pink noise, white scars. The dreamer and the dream become the screamer and the scream. Oh my goodness. All right, this one is pretty dense. Let me think about this. This is actually depressing to me, frankly. Because she says, young hearts stay true. The reasons that they play are not for you. I actually think that's really depressing because I imagine her as a young 20-year-old lesbian who is not thinking about the ramifications of hooking up with other women. She's just young. She's sexually in her peak, and she wants to just sleep with other women because she's gay. She's lesbian. So it's easier for her to, at that age, not think too deeply about how this is going to impact her life, right? She's more concerned about the more immediate situation. That's kind of what this makes me think of, right? Like what I was just saying on the last song of when I was younger, when I was like 20, I was far more concerned with sleeping with girls than I was with, okay, would I marry her? Like, do we have any chemistry? Do we have any marriage chemistry? But for Ferron, as a young 20-year-old lesbian, let's say, she was way more concerned with having these gay relationships and sleeping around maybe and having fun than she was with seriously considering the ramifications of being openly gay. Does that make any sense? So as an older woman now, she's not as easily capable of being so carefree with her relationships because maybe where she lives, like, people are not going to be very kind to her, or maybe they won't hire her, like maybe she's trying to get a job and they won't hire her because everyone knows she's gay. Right? So when you're younger, you don't necessarily worry about these things because you're inexperienced and you don't have that life perspective. But now when you're 20 years older, you start to think about all these things and they start to weigh you down maybe. So that's kind of what it makes me think of. Let's keep going. She says, I think that's true because my Indian dreams and my animal screams from the other side, and my baby cries out while my longing breathes life into what has died, and my sleeper dreams hope, and my dreamer sleepwalks through the shadow line, and my praying one copes, knowing truth will draw the line in my Indian dreams. Geez, this is very poetic. Oh my goodness. So this one line stands out to me. She says, while my longing breathes life into what has died. I don't know. I don't know if you agree with this, but it sounds like I said, maybe it's 20 years later. She's 40 years old or whatever. And she's thinking about her past. She's remembering being 20 and young and carefree and not caring too much about the consequences of being gay openly. And it kind of sounds to me like she's missing, she misses having that carefree spirit, that young carefree spirit of she's just going to do what she wants to do. And she doesn't care about what the ramifications are or might be from doing it. So she's older now and she's been exposed to the ugly side of life, and she can't go back. Like her state of mind can't return to being a young 20-year-old who's carefree and doesn't care about being openly gay or not. Like, she's clearly had some rough experiences since she was 20 years old. She's 40 now, let's say, and she's probably had to deal with a lot of crap for being openly gay in her 20s, right? Maybe, like I was saying, she's having trouble finding a job because people are homophobic or whatever. Maybe her family has disowned her, possibly, or maybe she's lost friends because of it. Like, she wishes she could go back to the ignorance is bliss state. That's what it makes me think of. So that's pretty depressing to me. Right? But I can totally relate. I can relate to thinking about my college days and how I used to act, what I used to care about, what I used to think about, and how I'm a totally different guy 18 years later. And I don't have the same state of mind that I did when I was in my late teens, early 20s, right? But you can't spend the rest of your life wishing things were the way they used to be. You have to just accept it and move on. So I guess maybe Ferron is having trouble accepting her new outlook on life and moving on and dealing with it. So that's pretty sad, but understandable. All right, let's move on here. This verse says, to watch brings shame, small words for big pain. Our love has been maligned, so easily redefined. Can you see through to one love, one soul, one chance through one hole? Excuse me. Sorry, my Coke Zero came up. The few who steal the key are the ones to say we're free. Is that your goal? While your Indian dreams and your animal screams from the other side. And this song is really dense. This is a tough one. Oh man. What do you guys think she's talking about here? One chance through one hole, to one love, one soul. She's talking about Indian dreams and animal screams. This one's hard. It sounds like she's just trying to find herself. She's trying to find out who is the person she's going to be for the rest of her life. Is she going to be some scared, closeted gay woman who is going to be miserable forever? You know, the benefit to that being not having to be harassed. The benefit being maybe she can finally get a job because, you know, her awful homophobic employers don't want to hire gay people because they hate gay people, you know, or whatever issue she's dealing with. It sounds like she's just trying to figure out who does she want to be for the rest of her life. And, you know, by being that person, she has to fully know and understand the consequences, right? So, for example, in my life, as I mentioned, the consequences of me spending all my time researching music and streaming and making playlists is that I'm not going out, I'm not meeting other people, I'm not going to concerts, I'm not going on dates, I'm not working a job and having a career, right? I'm sacrificing a lot of things to do what I really want to do, in other words. So for Ferron, you know, what is she willing to sacrifice in order to be herself? So she has to understand that and then accept it, is what this makes me think of, right? We all have to do that in our own lives. And sometimes you're just forced to do certain things, right? Like, let's say you don't have a lot of money and you're just, you know, you're forced to work a couple jobs. You just have to do it to pay the bills. Well, so the reality for you is maybe you can't do certain things, you know, like maybe you don't have the time to stream every night the way I do, or maybe you have kids and you have 2 jobs. And so you literally have no free time to do anything. So you have to really spend some time thinking about your own life and weighing the pros and cons of decisions and, you know, accept what you can't change, but change what needs to change, right? So if there's something that you want to do that you're able to do, then I would suggest you do it, right? If it's not hurting anybody else, if it's your passion, especially if it's your passion, then you know, do you want to die? Do you want to be on your deathbed at 80 years old, looking back on your life and regretting not following your passion if you were able to? Right? So in other words, I'm able to. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm able to follow my passion. But by following my passion, I have to sacrifice certain things. So I have to think about that. And I've thought about it. And I'm okay with it. So similarly, I imagine Ferron here is weighing the pros and cons of just being openly gay and just dealing with whatever comes, right? And it sounds like, for the most part, she's trying to convince herself to just do it, right? There's obviously some serious consequences to being out of the closet for her. But does she want to die, does she want to be on her deathbed and regret her entire life? Leanne says, the lyrics are so good here. I know. Geez Louise, this is a very intense album. Let's move on, though. This looks like the same. This is slightly different. Okay, let's read this. So, young hearts stay true, stay smart, see through the stories that they say. The reasons that they play are not for you. It's our choice and our time. They don't wait, they don't cry. When you can run with the river, why run with the river at? So, yeah, again, basically, she's looking at all these young gay couples who are just doing their thing and not really, they don't seem to be considering seriously the consequences of what they're doing. And from one perspective, that's a very freeing, it's very freeing to be in that state of mind as a young gay woman having gay relationships and not really considering the ramifications of it, right? It's so freeing to have that state of mind, right? But the older you get, as I mentioned, the more experience you have, the more you've dealt with, and the more you realize you can't just do whatever you want without any kind of consequences. Like, there's always going to be a push and pull. There's always going to be pros and cons. And, you know, I definitely understand how it can be tough sometimes to wish you were young again, essentially. It can be tough sometimes to be older, let's say 40, and wish that you were 20 again when the world didn't look so bleak to you. That's kind of another way to think about it, right? The older you get, you realize how cruel the world can be. But when you're young, maybe you aren't thinking about it so deeply, and your brain is occupied by other more real, immediate pleasures and sensations. Jay from Mexico says, it makes us look back in order to get where we're going. Well, I just like, you're not going to be the same person for your entire life. The person you were at 18 is not going to be the person you become at 80, right? The more you live, the more you've had time to think about things, the more experiences you've had. And as I was saying, you know, the older you get, the more time becomes valuable to you. Because when you're 20 years old, you just assume you're going to live forever, right? I thought that way. You know, like, oh my God, I'm 20. Like, I'm never going to be 30. That's so far away. And of course, here I am at 37 almost. So, yeah, time creeps up on you. Age creeps up on you. And then the older you get, the more you really start to wonder, like, man, what do I want to spend my time doing and worrying about? And what do I want to just let slide? Brett says, that's the great thing about folk music. Really good storytelling. I know, right? Leanne says, Ferron was an important influence on later musicians, including Annie DeFranco, Mary Gauthier, and the Indigo Girls. I wouldn't doubt it. All right, that was Indian Dreams. So let's see. Track 5 is Sunken City. I have to switch up my video settings here. So give me a moment to fix it. Come on, Streamlabs. Don't do this to me. There we go. Let me just fix this. I can't make it bigger. Okay, so this site is really annoying. I can't make it bigger or smaller, so it's going to take up a lot of the screen. I apologize. And I also can't highlight anything, which is really weird. As I was saying earlier, like Ferron's lyrics on this album are not like most artists, their lyrics are on like a bunch of sites, but for some reason this album, the lyrics are on like random sites, and even some of the songs aren't up at all. So he's got to deal with it. So, all right, I'm just going to read the top part here first. Oh wait, no, here we go. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Verse 1. Sunken City. To be what you are is one thing. To be what you want, now that's something else. You say you're finally afraid of something. I'm holding your hand. I'm kind of scared myself. Though it might hurt, what's pulling is so strong. The map of the sky has a place for you, and we've all been alone so long. We're footprints and handprints and knees in the dew. Ooh. To be what you are is one thing. To be what you want, now that's something else. So yeah, okay. So she's having a mental struggle as a younger woman. Is she gay or not? Right? At some point you find out, you have an epiphany, I would imagine. I don't know how old you would be. Let's say 10, or some people find out they're gay when they're 10 or 12 or whatever. So at some point in her life, in her early life, Ferron realized, oh, I'm gay. I'm a lesbian. So that's one thing. But then it's a whole nother situation to actually act out on that and start dating a girl. So, to be what you want, that's something else. And for my own life, right, I can relate in my own way, sort of, in the sense that, I'm a music researcher. That's what I am. I love researching music. So that's one thing, is to recognize that. And I love sharing music with people. It's one thing to realize that I love to research music and I love sharing it with people, but it's another thing to like make a website and to make a YouTube channel and to make videos and be consistent and like do social media and actually put the work in, right? I know it's a little bit like apples and oranges here, but like I'm trying to relate in my own way, right? So in my own way, for me, that's what that is for me, my struggle is being what I want is to put the time and effort into making this channel, doing these streams, making these videos, making these playlists, talking on my Discord, doing my Instagram, doing my shorts, right? So like, I'm sure everybody goes through a similar problem in their life where, maybe they're working a job that they hate and they really wish they went to school for like, I don't know, pick anything. So there's two choices. One is to just keep doing the job you're doing, paying the bills, and the other is to follow your dream and take a chance and see where it takes you, where you end up. And maybe you don't end up in a good place, but maybe you do. Maybe you end up way happier. Maybe, maybe you want to be an artist and now you're making art and oh my gosh, people love your art and you're selling your music and now you're making a living being a musician, right? So like, this is kind of what it makes me think of is the struggle we all go through with taking a chance on our dreams, in other words, right? I'm sure that most people who work a 9 to 5, they're not working their dream job. They're not doing their passion, right? They're just paying the bills. So, I know that's apples and oranges compared to being gay and trying to be openly gay. I understand that. I'm just trying to like relate it to my own life in a way. But I like the last sentence too. She says, "We're footprints and handprints and knees in the dew." And I like that because it makes me think of these people as real people. These are real people living these real struggles. Ferron and her girlfriend. They're real people leaving a footprint in the world, metaphorically and literally, right? This is not just some abstract concept. Like, for example, you might be watching the news and you hear about some awful thing in the world, right, going on. Maybe there's like a school shooting or something. And it doesn't necessarily feel real to you because you don't know these people. You didn't know that anybody in the school, and maybe it's in like another country. And so it's hard to make it real and personable in that kind of way. But she's trying to remind everyone that, like, look, you may never meet us. We may never meet in real life, but we're real people going through real struggles, living a real life, and we exist. So I kind of like that statement. So yeah, that's what it makes me think of, is sometimes we read about all these struggles going on in the world, but it's hard for us to really care and relate and be emotionally invested in it, right? It's different if the person personally. Like if I knew Ferron personally and I saw all the struggles she was going through and I saw her pain every day or every other day. Maybe she works at my job and that's how I know her, right? That's a whole nother situation. Because I could see her every day and I know she's a real person and she's going through a real emotional struggle. And, that makes it hit home for me. Whereas, frankly, in my own life, most of the world's problems, I hear about them in the news, in the paper or on TV, and I can't really truthfully, seriously sympathize because I don't know these people in real life. They're just like images on a screen, right? There's a disconnect there. So that's what this makes me think of, is she's trying to remind everyone that, yes, there are gay people and they're real people and their emotions are real. They're not faking it. This woman really loves another woman, and, let's say your political policies are affecting me personally in negative ways, and could you please stop it? All right, let's keep going down here. It's so annoying that I can't highlight these lyrics. Let me see what I can do about that. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Let me do this. All right. Okay, verse 2. I like what you say, though you're crying. I know what you mean. I go there myself. And it's hard to believe you'll be flying. It's as hard and as easy as trust itself. Ooh. It's not the job. It's not just the job or the goals or the lover who changed while you stayed the same. It's the future, and it's needing us whole. Let's go on a hunch and give this a name and go in search of the sunken city. Ooh. I think it's as close as we are right now. We don't have to move one sacred moment. So why does it take so long to learn how? Some things just pull so strong like the map of the sky, is the map of your heart. And we've all been apart so long. We're footprints and handprints and knees in the dark. Oh my goodness. It's very long, of course. Let me think about it. Let me get a sip of my Coke. Okay. All right, well, let's start at the beginning. The beginning is way easier to think about. I like what you say, though you're crying. I know what you mean. I go there myself. Right, so maybe she's thinking about, like, is this even worth it? What this makes me think of. But she says, it's hard to believe that you'll be flying. It's as hard and as easy as trust itself. Ooh. I mean, so, in other words, like, it's totally worth the risk. When you finally find your soulmate, she's having all these internal, emotional, mental struggles. Should I be openly gay or not? Should I date other women or not? Should I just, fake being straight and marry some guy and have kids and just do that forever? Or should I take a chance and fall in love? And she's trying to remind herself that, like, how amazing it is when you do fall in love and you find that special person, that soulmate. Because when you're having a rough time emotionally, right, when you're down in the dumps, it's hard to remind yourself of the bliss of, or maybe bliss isn't the right word. It's hard to remind yourself of the amazing emotional highs that you get from being in love with someone and being with them and doing these things and being romantic and all that kind of stuff. It's hard to remind yourself that these things exist, that there are people out there that are your soulmates, right? I believe in multiple soulmates for everybody. So you meet one of them, you fall in love, and even though, being in love doesn't mean that you won't break up ever, reaching those emotional highs, those relationship highs, is worth going through. Is worth going through hell. It's worth going through. She was talking about deserts and mountains earlier on the other song. So, like, it's worth going through this desert to reach that mountain. She's trying to remind herself that, taking this risk and being herself and falling in love is totally worth it. Because when you're in love and your relationship is going really well, it's like the best feeling ever, isn't it? Don't you guys agree? I think so. She does acknowledge, right, that she says, it's not just the job or the goals or the lover who changed while you stayed the same. She's acknowledging that, like, finding your soulmate and falling in love doesn't mean that you're going to live happily ever after. But it's totally worth it anyway, right? Like, there's no reward without risk. That's what life is all about. Is you got to take a risk if you want the reward. And the harder something is, the more you cherish overcoming it. Or, well, like for example, for her life, right, her hardship is being okay with people knowing she's in a gay relationship and being open about it and being openly, like holding hands with her girlfriend or kissing her girlfriend in public or whatever. That's the hardship. But if she can, deal with that and accept who she is and know that she's living the life she wants to live and not hiding for the rest of her life, then she's trying to remind herself that it's just worth it. I don't know how else to put it. Just because you meet someone and fall in love doesn't mean you're not going to break up ever, right? But that's okay. These things happen. You break up and you gain a little bit more life experience, and you learn a thing or two, and you apply that to your new relationship, and at least you're supposed to, right? I guess some people don't, but you're supposed to. So, as long as you are being true to yourself, then you should be able to die a happy, fulfilled person, is what this makes me think of, right? For her, it's obviously a lot harder than for me, right? My version of this is taking a chance at streaming and doing the YouTube thing or whatever, and hoping anybody cares and watches, right? So my life struggle is nowhere near as difficult as Ferron's life struggle, obviously. But everyone's got their own life struggle. Everyone's got their own deal that they gotta, their own situation they gotta deal with. And like I was saying earlier, in everyone's life, they have to decide, do I want to pursue my passion or not? Well, first you got to find your passion, which is the whole thing. What are you passionate about? And then the next question is, am I able to pursue it? And if the answer is yes, and you don't pursue it, then you might regret it for the rest of your life. If you're in your deathbed at 85 years old or whatever, and you're looking back at your life and you're like, I went to school and I became a doctor because my family wanted me to, and I was peer pressured to do it. But I really wanted to be a painter, and I never did that. And here I am on my deathbed, and I'm regretting my entire life here. Leanne says, this one is a top song, one of my favorites. Yeah, this one's really good. Very, very atmospheric. Leanne says, this reminds me of Jane Sidbury, who I don't know. Leanne said, Cole, I have an idea, maybe a bad one. What is stopping you from publishing the lyrics on your blog and we comment under them? That's a thought. Maybe I'll do that eventually. That would be its own thing. I'll keep that in mind. I appreciate it. Leanne says, Cole, don't hope people love what you're doing. Just know it. Know it, bro. Thank you, Leanne. Yeah, I mean, for all I know, 10 people in the world will ever care about my channel. But that's okay. I like doing it. I have fun doing it, regardless. Okay, let's go down. Okay. Last verse after my Coke. Okay. I was always the last to follow, and I made it a point to be the first to laugh. That kind of cool is kind of cold and hollow, and you can write that on my epitaph. Jeez. It was a flush dream. I woke to weep. I leapt toward morning. No more to sleep. No more to deny what's ours to safe keep. The mind and the matter can do it without me. Let's go in search of the sunken city. I think it's as close as we are right now. And then it repeats itself. All right, this is a tough song. Give me a moment, you guys. I was always the last to follow, and I made it a point to be the first to laugh. That kind of cool is kind of cold and hollow, and you can write that on my epitaph. Uh, hmm. What do you guys think about this one? This one's a little harder. Um, I was always the last to follow, which implies that I guess in her community, she's one of the few people who's really struggling with being in the closet here. Sounds like everyone else she knows is like openly gay, and maybe she's super jealous about it. I mean, again, I don't know if this is what she's saying, but this is what it makes me think of: is she's possibly envious of the people she knows in this gay community who are just like themselves, man. Right? Like, I understand where she's coming from, in the sense that like, I have trouble in my own life being myself. As I mentioned earlier, I have this huge problem with worrying about what other people think, right? And if you worry about what other people think, it's really hard to be yourself because, your subconscious is like, well, I shouldn't do this because then other people are going to think less of me or whatever. So you don't do it, right? Some people are just like shamelessly themselves. And especially in this gay community type of way, there must be, I can understand her being very jealous of the people she sees who don't seem to mind that there's a real danger to being openly gay, apparently. Right? There are these people who maybe they're like drag queens even who are like doing parades and gay parades and stuff like that, maybe. And they don't care who knows it. They're just going to do what they're born to do. They're born this way and they love it. And they don't care what you think. They don't care about any real life danger. Some psycho might kill them for it, right? You hear all those horror stories. Ferron here is like envious of all these people she meets or she knows about who, from her perspective, are not going through these mental struggles, right? Ferron is going back and forth about how open she wants to be, but she's seeing all these people who are already open, and she's probably not even considering that those people may have spent a long time struggling with it themselves. And she's just seeing them now in a future state where they've come to terms with it and, have made a decision. Right? In other words, it would be like looking at some famous YouTube channel and only seeing the fact that they're famous, right? And you're ignoring how much time and effort it took them to become famous, right? It's a lot easier to be like, oh, I'm so jealous of this channel. They have 1 million subscribers and, like, I wish I had that many. And ignore, like, all the hard work and time it took them to get to 1 million. Right? That's kind of like a vague similarity, I guess. So in her world, she sees all these openly gay people and who act, for example, gay men who act very flamboyant, let's say. Someone who's closeted might look at that person and be like really jealous that they can be so flamboyant. When the flamboyant person, maybe it took them years to just accept that this is who they are and they're going to be who they are. And Ferron is looking at them at their finished state. Let's put it that way. Like that person is in their final form. Their final form is being openly gay, and Ferron's looking at them in their final form, and she's not really considering all the steps it took for them to reach their final form. Does that make any sense? Check out chat for a second. Jay from Mexico It says, wow, I guess this was one of the hardest lyrics for Ferron to write down. I know, right? He says, and very, very hard to share those thoughts with others. I know. It's always interesting. Lyrics are interesting because they obviously had something in mind when they wrote them. And then here I am, knowing very little about her, reading her lyrics 30 years later, trying to understand what the heck she's talking about here. And, again, this is not canon. This is just like what these lyrics make me think of. So some of you might be hearing my interpretations and wondering, like, why would Cole think that from this from this verse? I don't know what to tell you, man. Things just come to me. So feel free to have your own interpretations in the comments. Let me know what you think. But I think that's the end of this song. Let me see. Yeah, that's the end of Sunken City. So let's move on to White Wing Mercy, number 6. So I have to adjust my visuals again. Get the lyrics on screen. Okay. All right. Okay, track 6. White Wing Mercy, I don't want to stay here. White Wing Mercy, don't you leave me here. It was passed among the rest of them while playing cards and playing friends that some of us are crazy. With a voice that knew who I tied up all my laces. That some of us are crazy. With a voice that knew who. I tied up all my laces. I covered up my faces. And staring in the mirror, I dare to wonder who. This is another tough one. It was passed among the rest of them while playing cards and playing friends. That to me sounds like gossip, right? What's being passed among them is, oh, did you know that Ferron's gay? Like, yeah, we saw her kissing some girl at the mall. Like, I had no idea she was gay, and everyone's talking about her now, and it's all out. And maybe she didn't even want it to be out. Maybe she thought she was being secretive with her lover. But people saw her, and now the gossip's going around town that she's gay, and now it's all out of her control. Right? So it's like, now she can't even do anything about it. Now there's no decision making, in other words. Right? Before she was going back and forth because maybe nobody knew. Right? Maybe people suspected. They probably all suspected, but like nobody knew for sure that Ferron was lesbian. But now it sounds like she got caught doing something with a lover, and someone in her circle saw, and that person is now gossiping about it to everyone. So now everyone in this town who knows her knows, like, oh, she is gay. Oh, right? And think about this. On one hand, I would argue that's a very freeing moment for her, because now she doesn't have to worry about it. In the sense of, like, before she was worrying about, should I come out or not? But now she doesn't have to worry about it. Now it's just out. And now all she can do is deal with the consequences, right? So now her mind is no longer occupied with the fear and anxiety that comes with, should I be openly gay or not? Now her mind can be occupied with moving forward. So she came out, but not in the way she wanted to. And that's obviously really crappy of a situation. But in a positive way of looking at it, like I just said, is, okay, well, that's one less thing to worry about. Now I can focus all my mental energy on the ramifications of everyone knowing, right? I kind of look at that at that as a freeing moment for her. It's a burden she no longer has to carry around with her. And now she can move forward. That's kind of how I interpret this, right? Is it's one less thing for her to worry about. In other words. So let's keep going here. All right. Was it my father with his hunting kit? Was it my mother with her hitting stick? Was it my auntie who was always sick? I wouldn't look at anybody in the eyes. I was afraid they would realize I was a crazy in a kid's disguise, and they wouldn't let me go to summer camp next year. Oh my goodness. On one hand, I feel like this is talking about gossiping again, and she's wondering who spilled the beans. Was it her mother, her father, her aunt? But on the other hand, it kind of sounds like she's wondering if she's crazy. Right? She says, I was afraid they would realize I was a crazy in a kid's disguise. She said, I wouldn't look at anybody in the eyes. Now she's having this really dark thought, in my opinion, of like, is she crazy for being gay? Like, is there something mentally wrong with her? Right? Because that's a whole argument that some Christians or whatever have of like, being gay is a mental disease or whatever, right? It's an issue with the brain, and we just have to fix the brain chemistry, and we can take the gay away from you by taking you to these gay away camps or whatever they're called. So maybe on one hand here, she's wondering who spilled the beans that she's gay, and also on the other hand, maybe she's thinking, am I wrong for being gay? Is this wrong? Am I mentally crazy, or is my mental chemistry all screwed up and that's why I'm gay? Or is this totally a natural, fine thing? Right? I'm sure that's a mental struggle certain gay people have. Maybe they think like, oh, I'm not supposed to be gay, right? Because they're supposed to be a man and a woman, and they can make babies together, and it's not supposed to work any other way. So there obviously must be something wrong with me. My brain chemistry must be all wired incorrectly or something. It sounds like she's having a moment like that where she's like doubting the reality of her situation, which is like, she's gay and there's nothing wrong with it. Being gay doesn't mean there's something wrong with her. It just means some people are gay. But she's having this intense moment of panic about it. Mental and emotional panic about it. Right? That to me is a struggle that must be so hard to go through. The mental struggle of, is there something wrong with me because I'm gay? Like, is there something wrong with my genes or my brain chemistry or whatever? Is this something I need to fix? In other words, like, is this something I need to fix? Do I need to take pills? Do I need to have brain surgery, or do I need to go to gay away camp or whatever it's called? So it kind of sounds like she's having this moment of total doubt. So poor Ferron. Oh my goodness. Let's go on though. Okay, she says, how they never gave my growth a rest, at my etiquette or at my breast, humility, the hidden test, I played along. But going through my day-to-day, I felt sure there was another way. I was wondering the price I paid to belong. That last sentence is really intense. I was wondering the price I paid to belong. So, again, like we were talking about with the other song, I'm sure everybody in their own way struggles with finding out who they really are and being okay with who they are and just being who they are, right? There's multiple steps. And some people, for whatever reason, arrive at who they are earlier than others and accept it earlier than others and are themselves for longer than others, right? But it sounds like Ferron has spent most of her time faking who she is, wondering if she's crazy for being gay, and she's just having so much, she's regretting so much of her life. Like, she's like, man, I spent most of my life pretending I was someone else. Imagine what my life could be now had I spent, my whole 20s being who I am and not hiding, right? I mean, I think we all have a similar kind of struggle in our own way, right? Usually, like I was saying earlier, usually it might be with like a job, and you don't pursue your passion because you're worried that you won't make money or you're not going to be any good at it or something, right? For like, musicians are the perfect example because, there's so many bands out there, and most bands are not going to make it. Most bands are not going to make any money, really. And so it's a mental struggle to be like, well, how badly do I want to make music knowing that I'll probably not make anything from it, right? Like, should I just spend most of my time building a career and not doing my passion? Or should I pursue my passion and hope for the best, right? You can spend your entire life making music and maybe no one really cares. Maybe no one really buys it. Maybe you die and you're forgotten, you're lost to history. But at least you spent your life doing what you wanted, pursuing your passion. And so for you, at least, you can be on your deathbed having no regrets. So for Ferron, I would say, don't regret, the first half of your life where you were ambiguously gay or not. Like, all you can do is act now. And now you have to decide where to go from here. And she clearly wants to move forward as an openly gay person. She doesn't want to regret her life anymore. So that's a positive. That's how I look at it. But let's keep going. Okay. Okay. After my Coke. Okay, she says, I left my father as only daughters can. I chose to see him as a monster of a man. Ooh. I left my mother in her frameless cage, but never could I shake her rage. Oh my God. It sounds like her parents or at least her dad was like a horrible person, abusive probably, and probably really didn't like the fact that her daughter was gay, right? So like her home situation was horrendous is what it sounds like. So she had to leave home. She's probably disowned, frankly. So that's terrible. It sounds like her mom was abused. Her mom is like a victim of domestic abuse. So like, geez Louise, Ferron. I'm so sorry. Second part says, now you with your visions and you with your fancies and you with your stories, I couldn't understand. My childhood adored you, and naked before you, I stand as a witness, as timeless as sand. Ooh, let me think about that. My childhood adored you, And naked before you, I stand as a witness, as timeless as sand. I feel like she's talking about like God and religion here, and like the Bible maybe, right? My childhood adored you. So maybe she was very religious or spiritual, and but her religion won't allow homosexuality, and so later she found out she was lesbian, and now she's having all these conflicting feelings of like, well, I love God, I believe in God, but God doesn't love me apparently because I'm gay. So like her relationship with God has just been totally screwed up here, and it's kind of eating away at her, right? She's naked before you, she says, and naked before you, which I take as naked before God, right? She's being herself and just saying, you know what, God, this is who I am. And if you hate me for being myself and for loving someone harmlessly, then maybe I don't love you, God. Maybe I have to be alone in my misery. It's kind of what it makes me think of, right? And she says, now you with your visions. Like I think it was track 1. She was talking about visions, having visions, which I kind of described as she has these moments of courage to just be open and be herself, and whatever happens. And then like 6 hours later, she's in bed at midnight and her courage is gone. So like she's wondering where these visions come from. And if God is love and God loves everyone and she loves a woman, then these visions of love must be from God. But God, her God is against homosexuality. So she's like, she just doesn't understand what to do here. That's what it sounds like to me. She's like, I can't win here. I love God and I want God to love me, but God apparently doesn't love me by default for who I am. But also I want to be who I am so I don't have any regrets in life. But the price of having no regrets in life by being who I am is I may end up, in hell when I die or whatever. So like, she doesn't know what to do, man. She can't win. Jeez Louise. This is just like such a depressing album. It's a beautiful sounding album. It's a great album, but it's lyrically very depressing to me anyway. So anyways, that was track 6. Track 7 is not available online lyrically, so we can't talk about it. That sucks. But track 8 is inside track. So let me get this all sorted out on the screen here. Ay. Okay. Sorry, you guys. I am fixing my screen so everyone can read it. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, my coat came up. Okay, inside track. First verse. I don't think about distant places when I've got my own mind, but it leaves me when I least expect it. Then I'm looking for a short line for home. I don't think about distant places. That makes me think about she's not necessarily thinking about the future, maybe the future ramifications of her current decisions. When I've got my own mind, but it leaves me when I least expect it, then I'm looking for a short line for home. On the other hand, this makes me think of she's very in the moment. She's like, she's a day by day type of person where she doesn't plan ahead really. She just, she doesn't really think about the consequences of what she's doing per se. Leanne says, inventing gods to hate you is a humiliation kink and self-sabotage in the highest degree. I know, right? Let me think about this first again, though. It's a little difficult. But it leaves me when I least expect it. Then I'm looking for a short line for home. It just sounds like she's moment to moment to me, where, like some days she's inspired to just F it, be herself, whatever happens, happens. And then other days she'll wake up and she's scared to be herself again. And she's not thinking about lying in her bed at 80 years old, regretting not just being herself every day, right? Some days you wake up and you're not in the mood to do things. So you just got to do them anyway, right? Because you know later that if you don't do them, you're going to regret it. So she would rather take the easy path and have a day-by-day approach to the world than to walk the harder path and be herself, even though some days it's really hard to. It's kind of how I look at this. Let's keep going. She says, I'm praying to a sunset mountain, well aware the softest lights behind me. I stare at the pink cloud water fountains and wonder now who's ever going to find me. And wonder now who is ever going to find me. So I like that sentence in particular because think about this. If she's pretending to, if she puts on a show and fakes her way through most of her days, pretending she's not gay, then how is she ever going to find her soulmate, right? If she can't just be herself, if she doesn't advertise, so to speak, her true self to other gay women, right? Who is ever going to find her? Who's ever going to be her life partner? If her life partners who are out there in the world don't know who they're dealing with, right? It's like you're trying to buy something, but it's not listed anywhere. So the people selling what you want to buy are not listing it online for you to find. It's like, well, how do they expect to sell stuff if they're not listing it out there? So for Ferron, it's like, how does she expect to find a girlfriend if she's not, making it obvious that she's gay, right? That's kind of how I look at this. Let's keep going here. Well, who doesn't have a thing with power, but how it leaves you late and lonely? And now with freedom, my front porch, I eat my dinner with if only. Yeah, it just sounds like, again, she's very day by day. Some days she has courage. Some days she wants to go hide. And she's kind of realizing in this song that, for her at least, it's going to be a harder road to just be herself every day of the week, every day of the year for the rest of her life. Some days she's got to just do it. She doesn't feel great maybe that day, but she's just got to do it anyway. She has to figure out a way to just get over it. And, what's the phrase? Like, Sometimes you gotta to reap the benefits. You gotta do the hard work, and the hard work for Ferron here is that some days she is discouraged and doesn't want to be herself and be openly gay. Other days it's a lot easier for her to do that. She has her little visions and inspirations, but she kind of knows somewhere deep down that she's got to just like put in the hard work, and just when she wakes up, on the days that she wakes up and she's having a bad day, she's got to just get through it. She's got to find a way to get through it. She's got to find a way to be herself every day for the rest of her life, even though some days it's really hard. That's what this means to me. Let's keep going. Okay. She says, I give when the giving's easy, and then I crack when the gift's too hard. Exactly. I adore the distant hazy, and then I run when it's in my yard. Yeah, so she's not willing to put in the hard work. You know, for some people, like she was saying in the other song, being gay is like not a big deal. It's easy. And she's envious at how easy it is for others to be openly gay. She's very envious. But for her personally, she tends to take the easy road. And when something's too hard, she gives in, she cracks, and she falls apart. So for her specifically, like I was saying, some days she wakes up and just doesn't have the mental energy to deal with whatever negative consequences could come from being openly gay. I don't know. So she's admitting that about herself, that she's got to work on that. That's a huge problem she's got to fix in her own life. All right, let's keep going. About your love in the polished stone, it's so easy to forgive you now that I'm polishing up my own. Well, okay, let's talk about that. So yeah, the people I was talking about that she's envious of, she looks at as polished stones, right? They're so beautiful. They're so inspirational. They're so desirable. These polished stones, you know, metaphorically, these people she's jealous of, specifically the people in the gay community who are just openly gay and it doesn't seem to bother them. They're like polished stones to her, whereas she's more like a jagged rock, which is kind of ugly and needs a lot of work, right? So she's looking at people who have reached their final form, as I put it earlier, and she knows that she's got to work on reaching her own final form here so she can be herself, but she also recognizes it's going to be really hard for her personally to do it, and she's not excited about having to do the hard work. She's kind of lazy, right? And then she says, I got to kiss the face of heaven, and then when she kissed me back, I tried to roll my lucky sevens, and now I'm back on the inside track. Yeah, so when she meets someone and falls in love or has a fling or whatever, she's reminded of how natural it feels, how amazing it feels. The highs of being in love or being intimate is just amazing, as we all know, and totally worth it, right? When she meets that woman, whether it's a new girlfriend or she's having a fling or whatever, those relationship highs are her reminder to herself that the hard work she's going to have to do is worth it. It's totally worth it, right? So, you know, I guess in my own life, maybe my version of that would be I could find another music channel on YouTube and who has a lot of subs and be like, you know, this is what might happen if you put the hard work in. It'll all be worth it one day, but you got to put the hard work in, and there's no shortcut. So I'm lazy myself in a lot of ways. So in that respect, that's how I identify with her here. Let me check out chat for a second. Jay says, just like you said at the beginning of the show, This album reflects a very not too easy path to discover who we are. Jay says, sorry for my English. I'm trying to write my best. You're doing a good job. No worries. Leanne says, if someone... Oh, sorry. Yeah, so everyone goes through this in their own way. Discovering who you are, right? Everyone's got to discover who they are and then be that person and not care what anyone else thinks, right? As long as like who you are isn't being a criminal. I'm just kidding. But anyways, let's keep going here. All right, this is the last verse. She says, help me remember those times every once in a while when I'm a quick flashing light, when I'm aglow in the midnight smile, or deep in a wide, wide night. Ooh. That I'm glad we're more than bodies, and that wherever souls in journey, I am thrilled this earth is beauty, and there's no past tense for easy. Ooh. So she's obviously very spiritual. And she just needs reminders of why it's worth doing the hard work. It's so easy to be lazy, especially when in her specific scenario, as we've said many times already, you know, in her time and place in 1990 or whatever, being openly gay was a big deal. And especially if you're lazy and you don't want to do the hard work, that doesn't help matters. So she needs reminders. She needs constant reminders of why it's worth it, right? She's probably wondering herself a lot of the time, like, is it even worth doing this? Like, maybe I should just pretend I'm straight and marry some dude and have kids, like I mentioned before, right? She's so tempted to just give up on being who she is because it's hard, because it's a lot harder to be who she is, even though the payoff is totally worth it as far as she's concerned. She has these moments where she's with a lover and she's like, yeah, this totally is worth it, right? She has these moments of clarity, but she's got to be reminded. She needs to have like a daily reminder. She needs to have like a bulletin board of daily reminders. Be who you are. It's totally worth it. Remember when you hooked up with that girl last night? That was so awesome. Just be who you are. Okay, so that was Inside Track. And track 9, Phantom Center, the name of the album, is also unavailable online lyrically. So we got to move on to track 10, the final song, which is called Higher Wisdom. Okay, let me get this all sorted up on screen. Give me a moment, you guys. Okay. All right, verse 1. This is long. After my Coke. Okay, verse 1. Was it in your higher wisdom that you turned your light from me? Or was it just your sense of humor that for a moment I should see? In that darkness was I weeping, in that silence sadly free. Now I'm waiting in your valley to be standing on your mountain, that I might tumble down your hillside to a place that waits for me. Oh my goodness. Well, I love the imagery of like the mountain being in a relationship and tumbling down the hillside being like the relationship falls apart, right? She's standing in her valley, seeing this beautiful mountaintop, and she knows how amazing the view is going to be from there, metaphorically. And she's also understanding that it may all fall apart, and she'll tumble down the hillside, as she puts it. But it's totally worth it, right? It's you can't have your highs without your lows. You can't live life with no risks. You got to take risks. And, high risk, high reward are relationships, right? You risk, the reward is you find a loving partner, you have all these amazing moments together. And the high risk is, of course, you live together for 5 years, you end up hating each other for whatever reason, and you break up and you're totally depressed and you're crying all the time. And you're like, I'm never going to meet anyone else. And my life sucks. And I hate my life. Right? We all go through that. But at the beginning of this verse, I imagine she's talking to God or whatever spirit she believes in, right? She says, was it in your higher wisdom that you turned your light from me? Or was it just your sense of humor? So like, it's depressing to me how, again, it's just, she's just a very spiritual / religious person. And she probably believes that like God makes everybody. And so God made her, but God made her unlike everyone else. God made her to be lesbian. And apparently the God she believes in is against homosexuality. So like, she's just thinking like, is this like a joke for him or the spirit? Is this like a joke to them? Like, hey, let's make certain people in the world gay, and we don't like gay people, but let's make them struggle with this, right? Let's make them tempted to be in gay relationships. And wouldn't it be funny to like watch them deal with this struggle? Like, it's such a sick, twisted idea. Like, God was bored maybe and wants to see drama unfold. So the drama unfolding is someone just naturally, instinctively is gay, but they're not supposed to be, according to this religion or whatever it is. And so their whole life, they're going to have to like pretend to be straight so that they can be in God's favor. Like it's like a sick, twisted, black, dark humor situation, I guess, is how she's looking at it. Maybe. So that's kind of intense. Jeez Louise. So despite believing in this higher wisdom, this spirit, this God who is against what she is, apparently, she is still thinking about that mountain. She's in her valley thinking about that mountain and how she so desperately wants to be at the top of that mountain to see this beautiful view, which is her relationship, right? And despite her spirituality and despite her God feeling this way, it's totally worth it for her to climb that mountain anyway, even though one day she might tumble down the hillside, as she puts it. So, geez Louise, that's very intense. Let's see here. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 2. From a time I dare to mention, I was shown the broken line in this world of good intentions. The cruelest love can seem so kind, and you may harbor quiet sorrow, but to speak it is the crime. And so I'm waiting in your valley to be standing on your mountain, that I might tumble down your hillside to a place that waits for me. So that repeats. In this world of good intentions, the cruelest love can seem so kind. In this world of good intentions, the cruelest love can seem so kind. I mean, the other song she was talking about harmless love and like, what's the big deal here? She's just loving someone. Who cares if they're the same sex? Like, what does that matter? I'm not hurting anybody, right? She's talking about good intentions. So, excuse me one second. Sorry, my Coke Zero. So she's talking about good intentions, right? Everything she's doing is with good intentions. This is not a hateful thing. And if God is loving and loves everybody, shouldn't they understand that there's no malice here, there's no evil here? It's all positivity, it's all love and all the best things about life. Like, it's too bad that Ferron apparently, from what it sounds like, grew up religiously, or at least that her religion was like very anti-gay, because it apparently matters a lot to her, right? She's not one of those people who was like, yeah, I grew up going to church, but I don't believe in any of that. Like, it sounds like she does believe in this, but she's trying to reconcile the fact that she believes in all this stuff. She's trying to reconcile the fact that she believes in all this stuff, and what she believes in is against her very nature. And it means a lot to her to please God or the Spirit or whatever it is. That's what it sounds like. So, like, she's trying to justify her whole life to her God, which is really intense. She's trying to justify it to her God, and she's trying to justify it to herself in the sense of, like, she's going to feel so amazing being true to herself and finding a woman, and the highs of being in a loving relationship are so amazing that, like, even if my afterlife is going to be horrible, it's totally worth it anyway. I'm going to justify it. It's kind of what it makes me think of. Leanne says, everything not Christian is evil. I don't know about that sentence, but I mean, like, I'm not saying religion is evil or anything. I'm just saying that, like, certain religious people believe that God is going to damn you to hell or whatever because of certain things you do or don't do, I guess. So she's very spiritual or possibly religious in some way, and she cares about what her God thinks about her and what she's doing, and at the same time she's trying to be herself, and she's trying to justify her behavior to her God and to herself. Let's keep going here. She says, I am a soldier without country. Ooh. Having laid my guns to rest, I am time without the notion. You could say I floundered with the best. I have followed after hunger, and I watched my wants infest. Now she's waiting in your valley to be standing on your mountain. Again, it repeats. I am soldier without country. Ooh. Yeah, that's a lonely feeling, right? She's got no backup here. She's a soldier without country. So she's fighting a war on her own. She feels like, but doesn't she have country? Like, isn't her country other people in the gay community? Or maybe she just feels like nobody understands her. She's fighting this battle that only she cares about, maybe. Maybe she has to just, like, become atheist. No, I don't know. What is chat saying? Hold on. Jay says, the cruelest love can be so kind. I'll take it from my WhatsApp status. LOL. Well, like, I guess she's fighting this battle so intensely in her own mind that, like, nobody else understands how intense her battle is mentally. Like maybe on the outside she looks fine or okay or whatever, but like mentally she's just in a war zone, and she can't talk about it with anybody. So she's like a lonely soldier fighting a battle with no country behind her, I guess, metaphorically. Right? Because like you can look at some random person and they might look fine. You talk to them for a second and they seem fine, but you don't know what's going on in their head. You don't know what they're dealing with. So maybe people look at Ferron and they think she looks fine and okay, but in her own head, she's like she's waging this battle, right? That we're talking about, of like trying to justify her entire life to her God and to herself, I guess. So yeah, we've got one last verse. Let's bring it up here. She says, I have asked so many people what the spark of life might be, but they bade me not to ask for more than the muted heart could be. And though they posed me many faces, all but one I could not see. Let me think about that for a second. I've asked so many people what the spark of life might be. So that makes me think of my own life in the sense of like, how do I enjoy life? Right? You look at other people and everyone has their own interests. Some people are really into some things. Other people are not into those things, right? Like I mentioned that I'm really into just researching music here in my desk all day and then sharing it on YouTube or whatever. And that's what I'm really into. And other people might be really into like going on vacations and exploring the world or like playing sports or something. Everyone's kind of got their own answer to what their best life is. Like what's everyone's spark to life or spark of life? In other words, like everyone's trying to search for what they really want out of life, what makes them happy. And the answer is different for everybody. And maybe Ferron here is trying to search for her answer to that question. Like what's going to make her happy in the end? What is, maybe there's more than one answer to that question. But I guess maybe the primary question is being openly gay for her going to make her life way better and going to make her way happier? Is that going to solve a lot of those problems for her? Is that going to make her feel better every day? Is she going to be happier? Is she going to enjoy life more by doing that? So, I mean, I don't know if it's true to say that everybody in the world has a passion and they just got to find it. And then once they find it, they have to decide whether to pursue it in some way, shape, or form or not. I mean, maybe some people don't have any passions. Maybe that's true. I don't know. Maybe some people are just born and nothing in particular really interests them that much. That's pretty depressing. Maybe that's true. Leanne says, Cole, how hard is it to find the records? Do you buy online only? Yeah, I just buy off Amazon or Discord, or Discogs, rather. I'm not going to lie. Especially like older rare records, like the sound. Actually, you can't see it, but there's a record on my chair behind me, and behind that is the Sound second album from The Lion's Mouth. That album is super rare and would be impossible to find at a store, so I had to buy it off Discogs. So there's a lot of records like that, especially like 90s albums. are really hard to find because they didn't make a whole lot of them. Or like the original pressing with the original album cover artwork is hard to find, for example, for some of them. But anyway, so yeah, this last part of the song is making me imagine Ferron kind of looking at other people and in some respects being jealous of other people who have their passions and and she's jealous of people who have obvious passions and who know who they are and who act like themselves and do what they want. And Ferron is kind of lazy and doesn't really want to take a chance and doesn't want to do the hard work to get where she really wants to be. And she's just wondering maybe what her own spark of life is. What's her passion? What's going to make her the most happy? Right? That's what it makes me think of. Jay says, I found the whole album on YouTube Music. Oh, okay. I guess this album is on YouTube. It's also on Spotify, but anyways, so yeah, that is the last verse of this album. We did every song on this album. And, you know, again, these are just my interpretations. I don't know what these songs are actually about. I'm just saying what they make me think of. You know, some of these songs I kind of stumbled a little bit on. Took me a while to think of something, and that'll happen. I like looking at these with a fresh perspective every time and not necessarily just like typing up an essay and just reciting the essay of every song, every song interpretation. I mean, I guess I could do that maybe. I don't know. But yeah, we didn't have too much messaging in chat about what you guys thought of certain lyrics, but that's okay. You know, it'll be different every time. Sometimes you guys just want to hear what I think, and that's it. It's just fair. It's fair enough. But yeah, so that was Phantom Center by Ferron, one of my favorite albums and artists. If you like this album, check out Testimony and Shadows on a Dime, her previous two. They're also really good. And yeah, my next stream is tomorrow night at 2 p.m. EST and 8 p.m. EST. I'm going to repeat the same playlist. It's my Hidden Gem show. So hopefully I'll see you guys there. And hopefully I'll see you guys at the next Music Mondays, which again, the next couple of weeks, I'm going to pick the album just because I want to get some new albums out of the way first to make my channel a little bit easier to find for new people. It's just something I need to do for the next couple of weeks. Just, I have to do it. So next week's Music Mondays is going to be about New Long Leg by Dry Cleaning. It's my favorite record of 2021. So that's your homework. Check that album out. And we'll talk about it next Monday. So yeah, thanks for coming in. Thanks for tuning in. And hopefully you had fun or were interested in anything I had to say. And I'll see you next stream. Have a good night.